Waiting over Jean. Um, these two are surrounding me. They're keeping me company in here while it's covered. It's just the positioning. So, oi, I'm tired. It's almost 11 o'clock at night. So, yeah, probably need to go get a drink of water. Lips are a bit dry there. I don't know what else to say. Oh, my grandfather's hiding things again and saying things that he knows makes me worry and then playing it off, which just makes me worry more. There is no universe in which having to get something done to your arteries or an artery is minor. Even if it's minor to a doctor, I don't know. Like, there are so many ways that can go wrong, and my grandfather's a bit of a stoic, so even with our history, and all that, I love him. I've got my feelings and all that about the past, but the fact of the matter is I love my grandfather and I don't want anything to happen to him. So there's that. He's not normally yeah, there's aspects of things I won't talk about here, because it's the internet and probably I already journaled about it, like the written one. I have two at this point. Yeah. What I write down and what I put here, some of it is like the same stuff and some of it's not, and I'm like, yeah, I'd probably just get tongue-tied trying to even talk about that one because there's so many emotions involved. So I'm just gonna stick to that one in writing. But suffice to say, it's not something he would normally do, given. And I would never, like, put it out there where I think that, like, yeah, I don't know. I think he kind of knows, like, I don't know. My grandfather doesn't really do the internet. So as far as I know, he doesn't know that this stuff exists. Like, he does email. He's not, like, tech stupid. He's just. My shirt's slipping. Give me a second. He's not tech stupid. He's just not. My grandfather is the one who taught me how to build computers. Out of old computer parts. Everything that I've built on, that is what I do with computers, everything that I built on, he taught me what I built on. He's not tech stupid. He's anything but tech stupid. He was around whenever, the first computers were around. And, he was essentially around that, like, type of stuff. So, in the military, before it was civilian. So, it's actually pretty cool. But also, like, he doesn't. Doing computers and doing the internet, that's sometimes something very different. Like, it was something very different at some point. So there's that. He's not, like, as far as I know, he's not, like, on Reddit or anything like that. He's not on YouTube. And if he is, he's certainly not watching my stuff. Especially since this is like a journal and everybody that knows it exists, I generally like ask them not to look at it. Like, it's kind of like a thing. I do it so that, like, my kids can get whatever answers they want one day. And I've got so many questions in regards to, like, my dad's family and all that. people I've never met, never known, never had the opportunity to know. Um, things were hidden from me. And as far as I know, they might not even. Well, I assume that they know I exist. Like, I used to wonder, and then I found out whenever I was like 28, yeah, 2 years ago, that my grandfather finally got a guilty conscience and told me, that they'd had a number at one point for my grandmother on that side. But, like, they waited 24 years to give it to me. Or anybody. Like, my mom didn't even know about this whenever she was alive. Just, she'd gone looking for him or his family because, I was asking questions. She wanted to find them, and my mom was an honest enough person. I mean, at first she tracked down my stepdad because she thought that, like, I was asking about him, and I was like, no, my real dad, the one that helped make me. I want to talk to him, or like, you start asking those questions pretty early. And, like, my mom was pretty honest about that stuff, so, she was calling around, she was trying to find that information, so, yeah. There was parts of that I wasn't even supposed to be privy to, you overheard all sorts of things. Now, my mom was actually pretty honest about that. My grandparents, not so much. And my grandfather, actually, this is in my journals too, because I was talking about it as it was happening. My grandfather used to give me like a bunch of different spellings every year. This became some sort of weird, fucked up game. Where, basically they all pretend like they don't even. Then sometimes he would just give me, you know what? I don't even know how my dad's last name is spelled. My grandmother went to the Social Security office. It's completely blocked off from me. I was actually there whenever she did it. So, like, I know what she did, but I can't undo it. Or if I can, I don't know how. I've literally been told that there's nothing I can do. Because she went to the Social Security office. They know my dad's name. Like, if I say, is his first name David? They can tell me yes, but they cannot give me his last name, or so they say. Because my grandmother basically went in there. This wasn't like a court proceeding. This is just like a paperwork thing. Not exactly sure what she did, but like she told them, like as far as paperwork goes, but I know what she told them because I was sitting right there. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but like it was in a different room. I was just kind of sitting there in a chair, like a couple feet away. And kids aren't stupid. And I often overheard a lot of things I wasn't supposed to because the adults in my life kind of were stupid, or I was just kind of nosy. In that case, though, the adults right then were very stupid. Because just putting a kid around the corner a couple feet away, yeah. Still going to hear you. I don't really know what universe they thought that I wouldn't hear them. Anyway, my grandmother like put on this sob story saying like that my stepdad had been the only dad I'd ever known besides my grandfather, and that I had been that he had been the psychological father. No, I actually hated my stepdad. Even as a little kid, I hated him. I was terrified of him. Anytime I had to like go there, like and he was there, I would start crying. There was not really much of a relationship there. He wasn't really involved. Interacting didn't happen. Like, there's once I can ever really remember him interacting with me that wasn't negative. And most of it wasn't even interacting at all. It just didn't interact, like, at all. Except, like, a couple times that it, like, sometimes that I can remember that were really, really bad. But then there was like this one time my mom basically told him to bond or else. So he set my brother and I up with like Godzilla movies and grilled cheese, and he tried for like that one day, and then that's I don't really remember much else past that. Like it was just kind of eh. My stepdad was a jackass. And I haven't seen him since I was like 4. And several years later, she was like telling them that like he was my psychological. No, he was not my psychological parent. No. But all I know is that she did something with that. And I'm not really sure what kind of paperwork was involved in that. All I know is that they won't give me that information. And that it used to be there. But that my grandmother, like, she was telling them, like, she never wanted me to, be able to do certain things and stuff. And all I know is that something was done. And if I call the Social Security office and talk to them, they will confirm that something was done, but they won't tell me what. As far as I know, a court order was not involved. It's just paperwork, bureaucracy bullshit. Like, I am literally denied any information that could give me my dad's name or anything, like his last name, a way to track down any family members or anything, because my grandmother pulled a bunch of bureaucratic bullshit. I'm 30 years old and I still can't get this information. I don't want my kids to one day, like, not know anything, and if I'm not here to find, I want to leave something behind for them, and that's it. Because you wonder all sorts of things, like, what were they like? Why aren't they here? And I don't know how to answer any of that without just leaving something behind for them to, like, decide for themselves. That's it. That's why I do it. I asked my little sister not to watch it specifically because I don't want her to see anything upsetting about her dad. Because, yes, I do talk about the history there. Generally speaking, the people I've asked not to watch specifically, there's a reason for it. Like, my little sister. My brother, I kind of told him, like, you probably don't want to watch that because, like, I talk about shit that's emotional, and also I might bitch about you sometimes. Which I don't do often. Mostly I just bitch about the fact that he's a coward and he still can't face me after. Basically, we haven't seen each other physically in 12 years. He promised to be there to walk me down the aisle at my wedding, and instead got very, very drunk and didn't tell me till the wedding was underway. And a bunch of other things. Because he didn't handle anything that happened to us very well. And the really weird thing is that whenever we were kids, like, before everything, like, he was the known problem child. Like, but then, like, my mom, what was left of my mom's family decided that he was the opposite. He could do no wrong even when he was the problem child. And he was the one that got into more trouble than I did. Like, I was never the kid that got into a bunch of trouble. Like, and then whenever I got older, I didn't have sex till I was 19. And I was in a relationship that was supposed to lead to marriage. And, like, I had negative nicknames in high school because I was Little Miss Goody Two Shoes. The only thing that I really did that broke a rule was climb a tree. And there wasn't really an actual rule against that. They just kind of didn't like it, and if they saw you, they would tell you to get down. Like, there was no rule anywhere that said that you couldn't. They would just treat it like there was. I was a teacher's pet. That's what I was. I was the little artsy nerd girl who had only a few friends, not very many, but the ones that I did have, like, I had friends that were kind of friends, but they were more friends with other people, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that I wasn't allowed to meet people outside of school, like, at all. There was church, there was home, there was church, there was home, there was school. There was and there was very little. There were like, I can count on one hand like 3 people that I was ever allowed to see outside school and church. Yeah, one in elementary school. This is with my grandmother. And I can name each person. Nope, four, because I was 17 and the counselor told my grandmother that it was stupid, and basically the police told my grandmother that if I was 5 minutes late getting back from somebody's house, they weren't going to pick me up because I was 17. Also, the therapist, basically every single time, the therapist and everybody had to threaten my grandmother into letting me do something. There was Sarah, who she stopped letting me see whenever I turned 12 because she decided that I was going to start having sex and doing weird things, and I wasn't even interested. Also, Sarah went gothic, and my grandmother freaked out about that more than her dad did. And, like, I was the friend who, like, was supposed to tell her dad, yeah, it's not bad, it's just clothes. Or, it's just, like, period clothing. I was the one who had to tell, because I was the goody two-shoe friend, okay? Yes, we laughed about farts and weird things. We were kids, but, like, I never did anything bad. So, like, I was that friend. The worst thing that I did was, like, eat sweets or something like that. Like, that's... But my grandmother didn't tell them about that kid, My idea of living on the wild side as a kid, like, was a sleepover where we didn't go to sleep. Like, and I wasn't allowed to go to very many of those. That was my idea of wild, like, and I was often considered very boring for it. I wasn't... the way my grandmother told it, I was out having sex and doing drugs, but even the therapists told my grandmother, and the teachers and the guidance counselors, she's with an adult every moment of the day. There's no way she's doing this. If I spent 5 minutes in the bathroom at school one day taking a poop, there was a meeting about it. Like, even if it was just 5 minutes. This one time, I had to walk across the high school campus because I had to take a piss. And I was like, it was the biology classroom, I think it was. And the bathroom, like, right there whenever you went down the ramp and around the corner. Yeah, that was closed because I don't even know. It was just not open. I couldn't use it. So I went to the one in Old Main. It took a little bit longer because, I had to go down the stairs and around a corner, and it was the closest other bathroom that I knew about. It was a big school, okay? And there was a meeting about that because my grandmother was convinced that I was having sex, and I was like, in 5 minutes, how? Like, how? Like, seriously, this was a question, and she was like, oh, you'd find a way. And I'm like, how? And the teacher, like, said somebody said something. It was a teacher, a counselor, or something. And I was like, what? And they're like, no, she's still a virgin. And I totally didn't get it. I don't even remember what it was. There was so much medication involved. So, like, normally I have a really good memory, so, like, little details like that, sometimes they didn't stick back then because of that. But yeah, my grandmother had to constantly be told that I wasn't doing drugs. Like, there was this one time we were doing a project with Sharpie markers, and I made the poster like I was told, and it turns out I'm just extra sensitive to that stuff. I wasn't sniffing them or anything. I was just doing the poster board like I was supposed to. And apparently my eyes dilated a bit, and suddenly there was a meeting about how I might be doing drugs, like my grandmother was constantly accusing me of, despite the fact that everybody was telling her that I wasn't on drugs. Like, I have never touched anything. I have never so much as tried weed. Like, I have passed hair follicle tests and all sorts of things in my life. Like, I actually did this just to prove my grandmother wrong. I I wasn't even an adult yet. I was going through that. So, like, I've never touched anything like that. I never did anything. Like, the wildest thing I did was, like, wear a skirt that my grandmother told me was the right length and wasn't. Because it was shorter in the back. And I didn't know. And people would, like, tell me, and for some weird reason, I, like, trusted her. Which was really stupid considering all the things that she had done, but like I wanted to believe because she would normally like rag on me, like she would scream at me if this stuff was like this, but this time she just didn't. So I literally went to school in this thing and I was told that like the tights I was wearing weren't see-through, like that everything was covered, even, you know, just in case, because I still didn't really like the length. Like I liked the skirt, I didn't like the length because it was a pixie skirt, okay? And though I am short, I had a derriere. So it didn't end well. Like people saw my underwear and it was really messed up. Like she would do things like that just out of the blue. She would go from like freaking out about a tank top, just a tank top that was like had like things like this thick, like things that even the most draconic dress code would not have a problem with. And she would find a problem with it. So normally, like, if nothing else, I could trust her to freak out if my clothes were, you know, not appropriate. She didn't freak out about this. She approved of the skirts. She told me that they were fine and that they covered everything. And then she just. Now, as an adult, I think that she was trying to feed her narrative about me, and I just wasn't giving her anything, so she exploited what little trust there was, you know, to make that, like, fit and make it out like I was some kind of little whore child. But no, I mean, there was somebody I wanted to kiss, but, I did kiss somebody. That was it. Like, I didn't have sex. um, and like, hell was I going to be like, yeah, Grandma, I totally kissed somebody. And that wasn't at school. Like, you didn't have time for shit. Like, it was a big school. I had time to grab my shit and get to the next class. And then, you know, I'd maybe talk to other students while waiting for the class to start if I got there in time. There were several classes, there was not enough time. Like, you could just be late walking from one class to another. You had to book that shit. There was no time. Some of the teachers would be completely unreasonable. You'd be like, can I go to the bathroom? Because you really had to go because there wasn't time. And they would tell you no. So, like, every student knew that you had to wait a certain amount of time. So, you better be proficient at holding that shit. They were gonna let you go for at least 15 minutes in a class. And then that was pushing it. Like, you only asked at 15 minutes. If you really had to go, like when class started, and at that point you were about to pee yourself. Like, it was like there were all sorts of little things, like because the adults were like convinced that, you know, we were magically faster than them. Um, and most of them didn't really have to do that trek every day, so like they didn't think about it. But yeah, my grandmother was constantly convinced, like she was constantly searching my room, taking my stuff, like she would be like, "Oh, this piece of jewelry that you were given for Christmas might actually be worth something, so she'd take it." And then she'd try and sell it, and sometimes she would, and I would never see the money. It was my stuff, and she would just take it. Whenever I had a job at 18, she took money out of my account. I literally ended up homeless because of it. My grandfather, never a word about it. It was always my fault that my grandmother did that. Like, somehow, she was stealing the Social Security checks whenever I was growing up that they were getting for me. Like, it got to the point where someone from Social Security, or I think it was Social Security, anyway, someone showed up to the house. I think they were being audited or something because they were living above their means. And it was possible, that they were doing this, and I guess somebody did this. I don't know. I don't know why this happened. All I know is that it did. And I walked in one day from school and this was happening. And, like, yeah. She claimed that she was saving it for my college fund. There was no college fund. She spent it on the things that they were suspicious that she spent it on. She might have had like a little bit at the time stowed away. But like, no. She was just taking everything. And then after that, she waited like 6 months and she got another appliance with it. Like, they I think they also got like another car after that too, like saving that up. Like, it was extra income for them. They weren't spending it on me. Like, my grandfather didn't really pay much attention to that stuff. I hope. I tell myself. But like, she wasn't actually spending that on me. Half the time I didn't even have lunch money. More than half the time, actually. If the school, like, whenever the school wasn't doing the free lunches for me anymore, she wouldn't give me enough lunch money to cover it. So like, I wasn't getting this. I wasn't getting it. They were. Yeah. And my grandmother, whenever I confronted her with it as a teenager, was just like, she basically said, "Well, I live there, so that's my rent." Basically, some other things that are right up bitch alley, and not good, not cool, not valid things to say to about that sort of thing. But that as a 15, 16-year-old, I didn't actually know because I was so incredibly sheltered. Yep. Hi, Lucky. Anyway, it looks like Gian's getting close, so I'm gonna go heat up his dinner real quick in the microwave. And yeah. And also maybe tame this because I was laying on it, and now it's even more of a. Now it's tangled on top of being a frisball, so